We'll just pull the trigger.
Wow.
And there's our rocket exhaust.
What makes it white like that?
Well, as the air comes out, it expands, just as a refrigerator works, and cools it so quickly that it seems to turn to frost.
And with that thing standing still against this black and a star field, I guess, in the background.
That's correct.
You get a sense of motion, right?
That's right.
Fabulous. Very inexpensive. What's next?
Well, these cans of compressed air have a lot of uses beyond from what the original designers worked at. And one of the things we can do is make miniature explosions. Now, from your own experience, I'm sure you know that on war scenes and battles, they don't really use dynamite and bombs out there.
No, nobody wants that. You might get hurt. What have we got here?
So what we have here is a miniature that we're going to use in the bottom of a set. We wanted to have a little blast of smoke and air. So what we're going to put in this cup here is a little substance that we can use for smoke, and in this case, it's ordinary talcum powder. And we'll put a couple of teaspoons in there. In fact, you can even see the talcum powder coming up to the top there. And
it already looks like smoke.
It does indeed. You can also add little pieces of cork, little bits of sawdust, to give yourself a sense of debris.
Now this should hide behind a rock or a building or whatever you've got in your
correct, either
set.
a miniature house or landscape. And then we'll hold this a bit out from us here so this can get a little messy. And then fire the thing, and then
wow!
Blast like that.
Great. Look at that. Look at that. Smoky! Okay, wonderful. What's next, David?
Well, besides space films, still the old staple for home movie makers is the old haunted house, the old ghost story, the old
Spooky
Dracula
place.
story.
Yeah.
One of the first things you need when you're moving in on your old, worn-out house is a frosted window. No haunted mansions have heat. So one of the easiest ways to do this is an effect that's been around since the last century. And all you required is a little jar of Epsom salts, which you might find in your medicine cabinet, a little warm water.
The salt crystals, right?
That's correct.
Right.
And a paintbrush.
Okay.
Now the window glass that you're going to use will be the window of your set that the camera will look through.
Right.
Take 2 teaspoons full of Epsom salts, dissolve it in the water. When the crystals are dissolved, simply paint onto the glass, and when the water evaporates, what we're left behind are crystals that will look exactly like this.
And this is salt sticking to the glass.
That's correct.
I see. Let me take a look through that and see what it looks like. That's interesting. So, and it looks like it's cold out there, right? It's cold and wet. Yeah. Okay.
And once you get through the window, since there's no heat inside this haunted house and nobody's been cleaning it, the next thing you want to see are cobwebs and dirt and dust draping from candlesticks and lampshades and books. One of the easiest way to do this is to use Scotch tape and cotton, ordinary rolled out cotton.
Okay.
What you do is you unroll a length of cotton here until you get a nice pile of fluffy cotton, stretch out a length of Scotch tape. I like to use the double sticky tape.
Sticky on both sides.
That's correct.
Okay.
Press it into your cotton, and then when you pull up, you're going to get gouts of dust and cobwebs. Now the other side of the sticky tape is used to fasten to candlesticks, skulls, books, witches' mortars, whatever your set happens to take.
Put it on here. Let's see what it looks like.
Now, it'll take quite a bit of time to really build up a lot of cobwebs on a set. You can count on spending several hours pulling this stuff out and getting it to look like cobwebs here.
Let's see if I can do that.
But the easy thing about it is that it's very easy to clean up.
Look at that. Look at that. Fascinating. Now, do you dirty this with something? Do you paint it or spray it with dust or something?
You can spray it down if you like, but the best effect is just to use dim side light on it of a soft color.
So the lighting is important.
That's correct.
I see.
If you light it from the side or use a little colored light on it, moonlight blue, it's very effective.
Very good. Okay, now I understand you set up some of these things in another area so we can see exactly how they look on film.
That's correct.
Wow. It really looks great on camera, and it creates an eerie illusion. The spider web, the frosted window, all part of movie magic. David, tell me, when you're working with paint and powder and glue, is there any danger?
It's important to work in a well-ventilated area at all times.
Lots of air.
Very much so.
Okay, David, thank you very much for all this. It was a pleasure having you.
Pleasure.
Now, we're going on the famous Universal Studios tour through the front and back lots for a rare look at Hollywood's biggest motion picture and television complex. While we just saw how some effects are created, I think you're going to be surprised at some unexpected happenings and near catastrophes thanks to California's special effects experts. Hang on. Here we go.
Of all the pioneers of the film industry, the name of Carl Laemmle may not be as well known as Samuel Goldwyn or Jack Warner, but Carl's legacy is perhaps the biggest of them all, Universal Studios in Hollywood. In 1915, when moving pictures were barely into their infancy, Carl Laemmle started a company which today is the largest movie-making facility in the world. He was a businessman and not one to miss an opportunity for profit. He also began the Universal Studios tour.
The tour actually started back in 1915 when Carl Laemmle, the then president of Universal Pictures, used to encourage visitors to sit in bleachers. Of course, then movies were silent and you could make all the noise you wanted.
And your ringside seat was available for a mere 25 cents. Not all of the silent films were shot on a stage. Universal Studios was located in the San Fernando Valley, which was one big orange grove 65 years ago. The original back lot was so busy that the western area was called 6 Points, Texas, because 6 films could be shot there at the same time, and often were. The ghosts of Hoot Gibson, Tom Mix, and John Wayne make 6 Points one of the most popular stops on the tour today. And with good reason. More movies have been filmed here in one area than in any other single spot in the world. Carl Laemmle had realized that his ramshackle collection of warehouses, stages, and backlot sets was almost as big an attraction as the movies themselves. But with the advent of sound, visitors could no longer cheer for the good guys and boo the bad guys, and the tour was discontinued. In the early 60s, however, Universal decided to bring it back as the centerpiece of a major new tourist attraction.
We want to keep our motion picture and television product awareness at the highest levels that we can. And it's a profitable business, and the company feels it gets an adequate return on its investment.
Naturally, the new tour offered a great deal more than the original did 45 years before. And the modern visitors were thrilled to see the familiar settings where many of their favorite movies and television shows had been filmed.
On Colonial Street, the house that everybody recognizes the most, the one they notice right away, has got to be the Beaver House. That's their favorite. If they can recognize it before the tour guide says it, they feel very happy about it.
The real film buffs recognized this same house as Ronald Reagan's in Bedtime for Bonzo. Many years later, Marcus Welby, M.D., moved in. Doris Day and James Garner lived across the street, and the thrill of it all, Gregory Peck's house in To Kill a Mockingbird was redecorated by Cheech and Chong for their next movie. And who can forget the Psycho house?
The buildings are constructed out of a lot of material which we use here in the industry. A lot of fiberglass, a lot of plaster. They're made to look like they're a sturdy building. In fact, they're really quite flimsy. There's a lot of plaster so that we can mold the structures that we want, and fiberglass and rubber bricks, and it's designed for a one-shot only.
Some of the best-known buildings are on Universal's New York Street, which has been used as Los Angeles in Earthquake, as East Berlin in Torn Curtain, and even as New York in Thoroughly Modern Millie. Little Europe has been the home for Dracula, Frankenstein, and Wolfman. Allied troops and enemy troops march the same cobblestone streets in All Quiet on the Western Front. The steps of the Roman Senate in Spartacus's time are just around the corner in the middle of the back lot. The Universal Studios tour has changed with the film industry. Special effects today are the mainstay of many hit movies, and the tour's special effects are just as fascinating. This 12,000-gallon flash flood menacing the visitors was used as a set in the movie Earthquake. The Jaws attraction, on the other hand, was built after the huge success of the shark movies. Through the Alpine avalanche, the floor, walls, and ceiling rotate. Or do they? Our visitors are not merely observers of the Universal Studios tour. In the screen test comedy theater, would-be actors and actresses take part in a videotaped comedy show. They rob a bank, make their getaway on horseback. The visitor really gets into the swim of things. They get a real taste of show business. The latest special effects addition to the Entertainment Center is based on the successful film Conan the Barbarian. This high-tech sword and sorcery spectacular was conceived and produced by special effects wizard Peter Alexander.
It's really different because we're combining all these different technologies in one place. We've got lasers, we've got pyrotechnics, we've got magic tricks, we've got a large audio animatronic dragon, and we've got live actors. That's what people normally don't see. I mean, you can go see a laser show, you can go see a fireworks show, you can go see a magician, and you can go see a play. But you can't go to the same place and see all those things at one time.
The explosions, fires, lasers, and technical cues are so complex that 2 computers are required to run the show. The actors and actresses are former gymnasts, dancers, and bodybuilders. The action is so demanding that 4 different complete casts rotate among the shows. Over 700 technicians spent 9 months with a budget of $4 million to design and perfect the elements of the show. As well as human foes, Conan must face an 18-foot fire-breathing, laser-blasting dragon in a fight to the death. Universal Studios is the world's largest filmmaking facility, the entertainment center of the world. Every year, over 3 million visitors come to the back lot because moviegoers are interested in how films are made, which is exactly what Carl Laemmle knew 67 years ago.
Earlier, I mentioned that the Universal Studios tour is the 3rd most popular tourist attraction in the country. Do you know what the first 2 are? Disney World and Disneyland, named for Walt Disney, the genius animation producer. Which brings us to our next guest, a producer of animated films, Canada's own Michael Hirsch. Hello, Michael.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us. I'm sure our audience is familiar with your TV specials. Would you name a few for us?
Sure. The first special we did that they probably saw was something called A Cosmic Christmas, which was about 3 spacemen who followed a star and arrived on Earth and basically learned the meaning of Christmas. And then we did The Devil and Daniel Mouse, Romeo and Juliet, Intergalactic.
Romeo and Juliet?
Yeah, it was the story of 2 robots who fall in love. They were made by competing manufacturers who keep them apart. Okay. And we did Intergalactic Thanksgiving and Easter Fever and something called Take Me Up to the Ball Game, which was an outer space baseball show. And we did a 10-minute cartoon for the Star Wars people.
Tell me about your new film, Rock and Rule. What was the inspiration for the film?
Rock and Rule really, I think, was born when we made a short, an animated special called The Devil and Daniel Mouse, which was loosely based on the story of the Devil and Daniel Webster, and was a remake in a rock and roll kind of idiom. And we thought it was a tremendously successful special, and we thought that the idea, had merit for other things. And we basically expanded on that basic idea of music, the devil, rock and roll, in making our first animated feature.
That's a pretty exciting mix. Tell me, what exactly does a producer do, Michael? It's a big question. A lot of people don't understand what your job is.
Not only is it a big question, but it's a tough question.
Right.
Basically, producers do everything from getting involved in the financing of projects, getting involved in developing projects, working on the story, working on scripts, to packaging the talent, choosing the actors and the voices and the musicians who will work on a film.
Now, in this project, how did you do that? How did you choose the musicians, for example?
Well, basically, we had our character descriptions, and we knew the kind of characters that we needed to have music written for. And actually, I should stop to explain that we made a decision that we wanted to do a rock opera that would be a bit different, in the sense that instead of having one musician do the music for the whole piece, we would essentially have a musician do a song for a character that they were cast to. And we then tried to choose people who matched their characters. The female lead of our film, Angel, had to be a character who could sing up a demon. And we wanted somebody who had an eerie and a very special kind of voice, and Debbie Harry was really our first choice.
And you have Iggy Pop, and you have Earth, Wind, and Fire, and
who Reed. And
yeah, how did you persuade these people to do this project? These are all very busy people.
Well, basically, I went and visited them and showed them some of the drawings of the characters.
How did you get to them? Tell me that. I mean, there are guards backstage, Michael. You can't just walk in and say, I want to see Debbie Harry and put her in a movie, right? How do you do that?
In the case of Debbie Harry,